Hey everyone, welcome to the update video for Age of Empires 4 Season 4. This is called Enchanted Grove. I'm expecting this video to be really long. I'm not going to read through every single thing in the patch notes, however, I want to cover the majority of what's changing. Personally, I would consider this the biggest change Age of Empires 4 has ever received. This is launching on February 16th. And we're going to see a whole lot of new stuff, including a new biome, which is called Enchanted Grove, which is also the name of the season here. There's new maps coming, new game mode. The mod browser is getting an update. UI improvements. Landmarks are getting reworked. There's Art of War updates, new cheat codes. AI is being tweaked, as well as a ton of civilization changes and bug fixes. I mean, this is an extensive update, and I'm really excited to dive in. So without further ado, here's everything that's coming to Age of Empires 4 in Season 4. So starting off, they're talking about the new event biome called Enchanted Grove. They're saying here in their blog post, we're kicking off Season 4 with a new glowing biome you can explore and enjoy throughout the Enchanted Grove event. If your units successfully hunt the graceful yet elusive Enchanted Stag in multiplayer or skirmish game, you'll receive a golden stag monument. And it looks just as you would expect, a giant, like kind of blue transparent buck looking deer thing roaming through the wilderness here. Gotta say, I really like the look of this biome. More of a fantasy historical visual change, and I think that's kind of welcomed. Not to say that the art or visual style of Age of Empires 4 is boring by any means. I think it's actually quite fantastic, but this is such a big difference. I'm really excited to try this out, and of course, there will be plenty of gameplay footage of this coming to the channel, so if you're interested, please check that out. Next, we're talking about the ranked season rewards here, and I love that they are so active with having both events and season rewards for ranked play, as well as just regular events that happen throughout the season. Dare I say that this is more of a live service game than other games like Halo Infinite, but nonetheless, if you climb the ladder, whether it's solo or teams, there's lots of goodies to be had, and I'm especially really jealous of the solo rewards for that chair monument thing that you can get here as you climb through the ladder. It starts at gold and goes all the way up to Conqueror. You get the chair unlock. In teams, there's also, looks like there's emblems that you can add, or profile pictures even. So we hit Conqueror in teams in Season 3, so maybe we can run it back in Season 4? Well, that's yet again another shameless plug. Check out the channel to see if we do that this season. Okay, so let's talk about the map pools here for Season 4. They like to change and add or remove various maps in the pool when you're searching ranked each season. So here's what they are for ones and teams. Let's start for ones. It's going to be Dry Arabia, Prairie, Lipany, Ancient Spires, Wetlands, Oasis, Altai, Boulder Bay, and Water Holes. It says, to keep things fair for competitive ranked play, the Enchanted Grove biome will not be available on ranked maps, just as a heads up. Now for teams, the ranked pool for teams is going to be Dry Arabia, Lipany, Hideout, Highview, Mountain Clearing, Hillendale, Mongolian Heights, Baltic, and Nagari. I like this map pool personally. I really like all of these maps. I really despised ranked the map pool in Season 3 with a few particular maps, which was the Pit and King of the Hill. Drove me absolutely nuts playing on those. So I'm glad that we're not seeing that in the team ranked map pool. Also, there's no Black Forest here in either ones or team ranked, which I thought to be interesting. Of course, if you don't like or prefer some of these maps, you can actually prefer and downvote maps when you're searching as well. So if there's a map that you particularly do not like, let's say it's Hillendale for whatever reason, you can downvote that, and the chances of you actually playing on that will go down. Moving on to new maps, they're introducing 3 new maps that we can play on: Four Lakes, Continental, and Marshland. And I love that we're getting new maps in Age of Empires 4. The one I'm really excited about is Continental, but let's start with Four Lakes here. It's a land surrounded by 4 lakes, invites aggression from all sides, both on land and on water. Fight for control over the land and the lakes at the edge of the map. In this open map, action can happen anywhere and on every corner. Maintaining control over the lakes and islands at the edges of the maps could be the very key to victory at the center. For Continental, it says Continental makes its return from the original Age of Empires. An extensive island surrounded by an ocean, the water holds numerous fish and stealth areas to ambush your foes. With water restricting maneuverability, your town center will be in close proximity to others, so take strategic care to balance your military for both water and land. That sounds really cool. For 4 lakes, I guess I should mention that it looks like the sacred sites are on these little tiny islands in the corner. And for Continental, it looks like there's 3 sacred sites that are going to be scattered across the mainland. For Marshland, looks like there's 3 sacred sites all parallel here in the center. Marshland is an open and aggressive environment set deep in the jungle surrounded by boggy grounds. There are vast amounts of forest that you can hide in to surprise your opponents, and though there are plenty of resources scattered in the swamps, beware of the dangerous wildlife lurking in the woods. This is probably the next thing that I'm excited most about this patch, because we make a lot of content regarding this game mode on the channel through a mod, and I'm so excited it's an official game mode, Nomad. So with Nomad, you start with a fresh slate of villagers available both in custom and in skirmish games. Nomad gives you 3 scattered villagers to begin your rise through the ages. You build your town center quickly to get a jump on your opponents or search for the best positioning for better resourcing. Be careful, there's no guarantee that the enemy isn't building right outside your own vision range. Nomad has all the same options as the standard game mode, save that everyone starts in random locations. Teams or no, your nomads are scattered across the map. So the way that this works, if you've never played or seen the Nomad videos on the channel, is whether you're playing, free-for-all or in teams, everyone's villagers are just scattered everywhere. They could be close together. They could be, in 3 opposite corners of the map. And your job is to move your villagers and select a location where you really want your villagers to build your initial town center. Now, your initial town center is going to be your first landmark, of course, so you actually can be eliminated before you even build your first town center if you lose your 3 villagers before that town center is completed. It's really cool. It's really exciting. A lot can happen, and I think it makes a more casual and funny game environment. As I said, right now, at the time of recording this, the only way you can play Nomad is through a mod. So the fact that it's becoming an official game mode is really, really awesome. And of course, that's going to make us playing Nomad even more easier. And hopefully we can get a larger player pool of people playing Nomad. That's exciting. I can't wait for that. If you're interested in mod browsing, checking out the latest mods for Age of Empires 4, well, you'll be pleased that they're making a lot of significant improvements to the mod browser. They're saying here to make it more intuitive and useful for mod enjoyers. So first off, there's dynamic search. Players can now see mod search results appear as soon as they start typing in the search input bar without needing to click on the search button. You're also going to get more relevant searching results. They've made changes in how the server returns search results based on your search criteria. You can also search based on sorting by popularity, which is calculated on subscription numbers and ratings, so popular mods will now appear first. There's an official mods toggle. You can now filter mods using the new official toggle to find official mods, as well as see a new official label on them. They don't go into detail on what that means. I don't know if that means published by the Age of Empires team, or if these are like verified by the Age of Empires team. I'm unsure on that. Subscriber count display, so you can see how many people are subscribed to the mod to help you find popular mods more quickly. And then finally, a pagination system. You can now sort by page and jump to a specific page or the first and last page. Sounds really helpful and really great, so that's awesome. Next, they're going on to user interface and user experience updates. You can now zoom in and out on the minimap. There's 3 sizes available: normal, 125, and 150%. And there's a change minimap zoom level hotkey that can now be reassigned. The default hotkey is M, but you can change it under the hotkey settings. They're improving the unit HUD. They say in this update, we're making an effort to improve the HUD's unit stats panel with the following changes. So movement speed will now be shown on the top level. It's previously shown in the detail stats overlay. Additional weapons and their stats are now available in the detail stats overlay, primary and secondary weapons for units, as well as emplacement weapons for keeps and towers. So it'll tell you, like, for example, the picture they're showing here is how much health it has, the attack is sword, which is melee, how fast they can move, in this example, 1.62 tiles a second, so on and so forth. I think that's really, really helpful, help you understand counters and how effective everything is. Duplicate weapons are now combined into one, showing the number of times it repeats for better clarity, which I think is absolutely cheddarful. Next is Garrison UI improvements. We've improved the Garrison UI to ensure that when selecting a Garrison building, you can see both the building's information panel previously missing and the Garrison units on the right side of the building's base stats. Yeah, so for example, what they really mean by this is if you garrison your villagers in your town center and your town center is under attack, you actually cannot see a specific number of hit points that your town center has. It was just impossible. It would just say that you have a town center and then villagers garrisoned inside of it, which was really aggravating. You kind of just had to eyeball really how many hit points your town center had if you needed to take your villagers out to start repairing it, or activate emergency repairs if you're HRE, so on and so forth. The list kind of goes on. Now you can see both the hit points and the units garrisoned at the same time. I think that is extremely helpful for both the ranked play and on when you're playing online. Next is the improved multiplayer team UI. They say here in the blog post, we've heard your feedback that in multiplayer games, you like to see team members displayed as grouped together to help you quickly understand who's on what team. With this update, we've made the change to display team members together clearly in the gameplay HUD to improve quick legibility. I'm losing my ability to speak, and I do apologize. You'll see in this change in UI areas such as the post-match summary, UI player score, and match history. So that's good. To be honest, I never really noticed that, but I can see how that bothered a lot of people. They're also doing tribute changes in a helpful way. So previously, if you wanted to send someone, like, let's say, 1,000 gold, you would have to click 10 times on the gold on the tribute screen to send it to them. There's no way to shortcut to send large increments. Now they're finally adding that. I think this should have been in launch, but I'm glad that they're finally adding it. You can hold down Shift to send 5 times that resources and Control to send 10 times that resources. So if you hold Shift, it looks like you're going to be doing increments of 500. And if you hold Control, you're going to be doing increments of 1,000. That's really, really great. Okay, so quickly, I want to go over the bug fixes and general balance changes. This is really a global impact from everything, and there are some great changes here that I really like. So let's go through this very quickly. General changes and bug fixes. When you're eliminated from a match, remaining units will stop attacking previous targets, villagers will stop gathering, and any other unit commands will also cease. You know what? I think this is a huge impact on game modes such as Nomad. It was almost like, dare I say, some sort of last-minute strat, where I see a lot of players would, kind of all unit and target, like, say, a building or something right before they're eliminated, and their units and villagers would continue doing what they need to do. You'll see in many, almost I would say all of our Nomad videos, when we eliminate someone, their villagers will still be mining really precious resources, say gold and stone. So we're going to have to go over with our units, and you have to actually individually target those villagers and kill them. It's really a strat, so you can forward mine those resources at a later time throughout the game, or you can leave those villagers alone if, say, it's someone's teammate and they're close to another opponent, and you want those now neutral villagers to kind of take away those resources from their own teammate who's no longer eliminated, if that makes sense. As well as attack moving eliminated military units doesn't work. You have to individually target them. So anyway, that's all being fixed. That's actually going to have huge implications to Nomad. So I'm interested to see how that impacts that game mode there. Next, ability hotkeys that do not conflict with the selected build menu will now remain active. They fixed an issue to ensure right click and drag only occurs when the right click is held and then the mouse is dragged. They fixed a bug to ensure fishing boats do contribute to the economic unit count. They fixed a bug that prevents re-downloading subscribed mods when you already own the latest version. They fixed a bug wherein training masteries could not be completed. I think that was actually pretty huge. And in fact, that happened once to me. I wanted to do a training mastery and I didn't get the credit for it. Turns out that that's a bug, and I'm glad that's being fixed. Moving on to bugs with particular gameplay changes, this one I think is huge and very welcomed. I've raged in this plenty of times in videos. They fixed a bug where placing a palisade gate sometimes creates a gap in the wall. And the way that you would do this is if like you would build a palisade wall, the wall isn't necessarily completely finished, and then you would kind of interrupt that build to build a gate. It would just create a gap in the wall. And I think there's actually some matches where we have lost due to that, because obviously the game doesn't tell you that. You would need to really be looking out for that particular instance. And of course, your opponent's troops would take advantage of that through their pathing, and it would just infuriate me so much. So that is probably the most welcomed bug fix here in this entire patch. They fixed a bug where landmarks would remain standing if destroyed while under construction. To be honest, I don't know if that's a bug. If I'm understanding this correctly, that's kind of actually, I would say, a feature or some sort of meta strat. There's plenty of videos that we've done where you would drop a landmark and then it would get attacked and its hit points would go down to 0. We would actually not destroy that ourselves, or cancel it, I should say. Instead, we would keep that there because that would actually aggro opponents and their military troops, and we could use that to our advantage, and you would also gain the line of sight there as well. So it would kind of be an advantage for us. I can kind of see how that would be quote-unquote OP. I mean, of course, the disadvantage is you don't have your landmark. You would have to send your villagers to build that, and you would also need to take control of that land in order to, not have your villagers die when you're building it. But I can see how that's a bug. The relics, now they respawn on land after being lost in the ocean on a transport ship. I think that's pretty cool. This one really bugged me too. After repairing a farm or a resource drop-off building, your villagers will now automatically gather from the farm or nearby resources. So previously, if your farms were under attack, you would tell your villagers to repair the farms. They would then just stand there after the farm was done. You would have to tell them a second time to gather the resources on that farm. Now that's being changed, and I like that. In the performance update preview, they had actually changed the way that boars work, where if you were to attack a boar, it would not aggro opponents. It would just remember that you aggroed it and, kind of follow you and attack you. A lot of people would use boars to kind of aggro enemy villagers and scouts if they were nearby. And thankfully, they're actually reverting that change back to how it currently is. So they're reverting the change to the boar retaliation behavior thanks to feedback from the PUP patch update preview. The boar no longer only changes the attacking unit and will now instead target the closest nearby unit when attacked. That's actually kind of a micro strat that you can do. You can even have that boar even aggro buildings, which is really hilarious. Finally, they're buffing and nerfing fish, depending on how you look at it. They're nerfing deep water fish, and they're buffing shoreline fish just a little bit. They're also nerfing walls. So for palisade walls, the cost is increased from 5 to 7 wood, and the health has been reduced from 1,500 to 1,250. That kind of goes along the lines of the Roos improved palisade wall. For stone walls, the health has been reduced from 3,500 to 3,000. They're still nerfing walls. I mean, that's been kind of a trend for the last few seasons, and that's continuing here. Finally, with trade, they're nerfing trade by 10%. Reduced gold generated by trade is 10%. I don't think that's going to make a huge difference, but I do think that that's welcome. Trade is a little OP in Age of Empires 4. I was surprised when I started playing Age of Empires 2. Their no one did any trade. And I thought that was surprising. And of course, that's just because it's so OP in Age of Empires 4. There's a developer's note here. When comparing gold generation from traders versus villagers, we found that traders are more effective, so we've used this change to create a more compelling choice between the two economic units. They're nerfing how monks work in combat. Monks will now only heal at 50% speed when their target is in combat. I wonder if that impacts HRE. I would say I doubt it, but who knows? Now, this is interesting, and there's been a lot of talk on the community about this. All units will no longer fire additional shots after hunting any harvestable Gaia. This means that scouts will now correctly fire 2 arrows when hunting deer instead of 3. The way I've actually understood this is this was intentional. This was an intentional thing, and I always laughed that they were double tapping deer, like they were dead and you would fire 1 additional shot. I thought that this was intentional to kind of nerf or put in check Roos hunting deer at the beginning of the game to kind of not make them as OP. And there's a few instances where you'll see like your scout and a Roos scout kind of almost baiting one another into getting that 3rd shot to kind of slow them down. Also, it kind of make you micro your deer more manually to, because you can queue up, your scout mowing down all of this deer. And my understanding of that would be the cost of queuing up that or not microing that manually is that additional 3rd shot. It would take a little bit more time. But according to the developers, that's just not the case. So they're actually buffing siege a little bit in terms of their cost. They're starting off with field-constructed siege units no longer get stuck in berry bushes. For bombards, they're reducing the cost of the wood from 400 to 300. The Great Bombard from the Ottoman, the wood has been reduced from 600 to 450. Cannons, wood has been reduced from 400 to 300. And the pianos, the wood cost has been reduced from 400 to 300. The developers say that the siege weapons were feeling too expensive considering how quickly they get killed by anti-siege and melee units. Battering ram, siege workshops can now produce battering rams for all civilizations, and there's a new technology, lightweight beams in the Imperial Age, that increases the battering ram speed attack by 40% and reduces their field construction time by 50%. I think that's actually really cool, and I thought that was interesting. The only way that you could build rams was through field construction. And I never really thought about that because as time goes on, rams kind of fall off in exchange for like trebs or mangonels or cannons or whatever. And the fact that, you can now manually make these in siege workshops is great. Okay, next, part 2 of the update. This is the big one, landmark reworks. This is something that I think is probably the biggest change to the game since the game came out, in my opinion, in terms of mechanics and how, the meta is going to be impacted here. So this is going to be really extensive, and I'm going to slaughter a lot of the names of some of these units and landmarks. I'm going to apologize ahead of time, and I'll do my best to describe things both as in detail and as accurately as possible, but I don't think I'm going to read every individual thing. I mean, I would be here for hours doing that. Again, the link to this is in the description, so you can read this for yourself, but I'm going to hit the high points here of these changes. Let's start with the description here. Big changes here for landmarks. We've taken a hard look at the landmark designs and changed some dramatically. Don't worry, your favorites like the Golden Gate landmark are untouched. We've looked at our data from the least used landmarks, as well as many personal accounts from the community to target the underperformers. Our aims are for these to open up additional strategic options for the civilizations, create landmarks that have more active and engaging strategies, and make the gameplay between landmarks more unique. We've also buffed lesser used landmarks and added some more fun. The full details can be found below in each civ specific changes. So really, I think with a lot of builds, particularly civilizations like English, French, maybe even HRE, there's like one path that you really should go when you're going with your landmark builds, going up in each age. Really, by and large, you're going to be picking the same landmarks every single time. With French, you're always most likely 90% of the time going to pick the School of Cavalry. With English, you're always going to pick the the chapel thing that builds all of the longbows. I do apologize. I forget the name, which is embarrassing. And with HRE, you almost always pick the OP chapel, which inspires your units when you garrison a prelate in them. So they're going to change all that to make sure the lesser used landmarks are buffed to where you can use them more frequently. Okay, so now we're moving on to civilization-specific changes. Honestly, this is going to go in line with the landmark rework that I had just talked about, but this is extensive, and I'm not going to talk about every single one, but let's go ahead and get started. It's in alphabetical order, so first up is Opposite, talking about landmarks, buildings, and technology. This is going to be the same for every civ, but I just want to give you a heads up. For Opposite, they say we wanted the initial wing choice of the House of Wisdom to align more closely with the high-level strategies. Military wing is for rushing, the culture wing is for teching, and the trade economic wings are for booming. These changes are aimed at increasing the diversity of playstyles available to all of the Opposite civilization. Now, the way Opposite currently is, they're one of my favorite civs, by the way. But I think that this is going to be one of the most drastic changes of all of the civs in the game. However, I think this is going to make Opposite really, really nasty in Season 4. So the House of Wisdom landmark, this building is now a home market destination that can be traded with. That's immediately huge, right off the bat, that the House of Wisdom is a home market destination. The trade wing, if you get that, it now spawns 3 traders once construction is complete. I mean, that's huge. Now with the trade wing, you already get the upgrade where it makes your traders, but as you progress through the ages, you can get a secondary resource. That's either food or wood. I think that's really impactful. I prefer to go for wood because you're going to get food from your villagers. Of course, you can change it on the fly if you want. As well as things like you get 30% more gold as an upgrade, and your traders actually get more armor as well. But the fact that you get 3 traders once construction's complete, if you want to boom, I mean, that's a great way to do it, especially that it's a market too. You don't need to build an additional market. If you find a neutral market that's really in an advantageous spot for you, especially if you're playing like Nomad, this is huge. I'm a big fan of that. Military wing. It spawns units based on the age you complete this wing. 1 archer and 2 spearmen in feudal, 2 camel riders in castle, and 3 hand cannoneers in imperial. That's huge as well. I mean, I'm in love with this already. I all of these wings, I haven't even gotten to the third one, but this is huge. Camel rider shields are moved to the stable, which I think is an interesting move. The composite bows are now moved to this wing in the castle age. The cost has been reduced from 700 gold, 300 wood, to 350 gold, 150 wood. So they cut the cost in half. And I think that makes a little bit more sense, by the way. Economic wing. They added a fertile crescent technology. It costs 25 wood, 75 gold, and it reduces the cost of wood in cost. Next up is the economic wing, and it adds a fertile crescent technology upgrade. It costs 25 food and 75 gold. What this upgrade does is it reduces the wood and stone cost of economic buildings and houses by 25%. So I think really what they mean in line by this is town centers are going to be cheaper once you get the economic wing, which is really cool. They're going to move the fresh foodstuffs to the town center, and which is the upgrade, by the way. That reduces the cost of your villagers, which are changing the impact of this as well. When you were to get this upgrade, it reduced the cost of your villagers from 50 wood to 50 food to 25 food. This now is going to reduce the bonus of that from 50% to 35%. So I think that's going to put the cost of villagers somewhere around like 35 food or so. I think I would get that in feudal. That's usually the first wing that I would go every single time is opposite. But of course, with these changes, it's going to really make you think. The culture wing. The preservation of knowledge bonus has been reduced from 30% to 20%. And the reduction now applies to age up cost, which is cool. The research time has been reduced from 60 seconds to 30 seconds. So, I mean, that's just really cool. Overall, with Opposite, big fan of that. Absolutely big fan of that. We'll see how they work in ranked this season, but I think they're going to be close to the top. Moving on to China, the astronomical clock tower landmark rework can now produce clock tower battering rams. They have bonus health. They fixed a bug where granaries wouldn't generate taxes when technologies were researched there. For units, the Song Dynasty villager speed bonus has been reduced from plus 35% to plus 25%. Finally, the Nesta Bees will finish its current volley if the target dies or move out of range. Previously, it would stop firing immediately in those cases. I think that's good. And really what that does is I think that puts the Nesta Bees a little bit in check because people just spam those and they annoy me to no end. So I think that's really good. There's a lot of changes here to Delhi, and I do need to apologize. I would say the two civs I know the least about are Delhi and Rus, but nonetheless, here are the changes for Delhi. The compound of the Defender landmark contains the following defensive technologies that ignore an age requirement. There's a village fortress, which reduce research time reduced from 5 minutes to 3 minutes and 45 seconds. It has burning oil, court architects, slow burning defenses. The House of Learning landmark, reinforced foundations technology allows villagers and infantry to garrison in houses and fire garrison arrows. Houses gain plus 50% hit points. That's huge. I was speaking to Gus about this. That is a huge change that villagers could garrison in houses as Delhi. That's going to be really impactful against raids and stuff. It's going to make Delhi really anti, dunk per se, if you will. The Tranquil Venue technology, healing per second, increased from 1 to 2. Lookout Tower technology now adds plus 1 weapon range to outposts. And the Heavy Rations technology has moved from the Imperial to the Castle Age. The Hisar Academy landmark acts as a madrasa in food generation, increased by 20%. The Palace of the Sultan landmark. It now trains unique Sultan Elite Tower elephants, a mounted elephant with 2 hand cannoneer riders. That's really cool. While activated, the Palace of the Sultan will train an elephant every 200 seconds, and you can garrison scholars in the landmark to speed up production, with 4 scholars reducing the train time down to 90 seconds. With your mosque, your garrison slots increase from 3 to 5. The Dome of Faith now acts as a mosque. The Villager Fortress technology, the research time has been increased from 3 minutes and 45 seconds all the way up to 5 minutes. The Fixed Lookout Tower technology not affecting outposts built after researching this technology. That's a fixed bug. The Zeal technology now adds a golden glow to effective units. The buff effect no longer stacks, and they fixed a bug where the buff was giving much less attack speed than intended. Now, there's a lot of changes here with the Delhi units. So starting with the War Elephants, the cost has been reduced from 600 food, 400 gold, to 400 food, 350 gold. Hit points have been reduced from 1400 to 850, which I think is important. The armor has been increased from 4 and 2 to 4 and 5. The tusk damage has been increased. The spear damage has been increased. And the tusk siege damage gains plus 100 versus building. So I think they're increasing its damage and nerfing its health while reducing their cost. The tower elephant has also tusk siege damage gains plus 50 versus buildings. And then finally, your scholars, the cost has been reduced from 150 to 130. The developers say, as in the combat healing nerf hits Delhi the hardest, we wanted to compensate them by making it easier to add in additional scholars. For the naval for Delhi, they're getting a plus 50% hit points on fishing ships, and they fixed an issue where fishing ships would not benefit from range damage blacksmith upgrades. Moving on to English. Now, the Abbey of Kings is the landmark that no one used as English, and they're changing that. So with the Abbey of Kings, that was the one that previously had a healing area. It now can crown a king, a cavalry leader, with a lesser version of the Abbey's aura. It costs 150 food and 150 gold. Only one king can be trained at a time, and nearby units heal out of combat for 2 hit points every second. The developers say previously, while it was possible to get a lot of resource value out of the Abbey of Kings, it was often cumbersome in later stages of the game. Now this option to mobilize in the form of a king gives players the ability to engage in aggressive strategies while still getting the value out of the Abbey. The Council Hall, which is the one where you can create those OP longbowmen, you change from producing longbowmen and their technologies to all archery range units and their technologies. I think that this is actually kind of broken, in my opinion. The option to quickly produce crossbowmen should open the door to more strategies with English in Castle and Imperial Ages. Let's just make English more OP. And I think this is really going to trigger Gus. He hates English. Personally, I like English a lot playing as them. I hate going against them. So I think this is going to be a mixed bag from reactions. For the King's Palace landmark, they're doubling its hit points from 2,500 to 5,000. I think that's actually kind of huge. The White Tower landmark now trains units, researches technologies, and builds emplacements 100% faster. The Berkshire, they're actually buffing that. They're increasing the hit points from 5,000 to 6,500. The effect change from projectiles now have plus 50 range and double the amount of base arrows to all projectiles now have 15 tile range. And arrows from the Berkshire are now incendiary and deal increased damage. Jeez. So the Berkshire Garrison arrow base damage has been increased from 10 to 12. The developers say, we want to create a more compelling choice between the Wingard and the Berkshire. This change makes the Berkshire more effective. The Wingard Palace now produces 4 distinct armies, so they're changing the army composition. The Wingard army no longer trains 1 spearman, 1 man-at-arms, 1 knight, 1 lone bowman, and 1 trebuchet. It now trains 2 spearmen, 2 crossbowmen, and 1 trebuchet. The cost and train time are unchanged. Still, absolutely broken if you get the Wingard Palace, in my opinion. It's a must-have. The Wingard Raiders, it still trains 3 horsemen and 3 knights. The train time has been increased by 5 seconds. And finally, the Wingard Rangers. The train time has actually been reduced. The damage has been increased. The health has been increased. Attacks slightly faster, and the attack speed has been changed from 1.65 to 1.62. There's a new one, Wingard Footmen. The hit points have been increased from 190 to 280. So the Chamber of Commerce for French is getting a huge change as well. So the Chamber of Commerce previously, I think it was a 30% buff to all traders that you had that were trading to it. And this would not stack, but you get 30% of the 30% if you were going to a neutral market. Big change here with French. And I think it's actually kind of cool. You're no longer getting those additional resource buffs to traders, so they're taking away that 30% gain. However, you're getting 1 free trader for every economic technology research. That's kind of cool, huh? For the College of Artillery, your bonus damage has been increased from plus 20 to plus 30. It works 50% faster. And the Red Palace landmark now activates an arbalist weapon on all keeps and town centers. I thought that was kind of cool. Moving on to HRE. So they really want to target the Minework Palace landmark. That's like the OP blacksmith that trains stuff really quickly. However, the chapel is just a better landmark. So that's what they're targeting here is the Minework Palace. So it now holds 2 technologies unique to the landmark. There's a riveted chainmail where spearmen and horsemen get plus 2 melee armor. And there's the riveted chainmail has been removed from the barracks, so it's been moved into the Minework Palace. The steel barding, I think that's a new one here. Knights gain plus 2 armor. They fixed an issue where the cathedral does not correctly follow the hotkeys and rebinds. And so that's really it for HRE. I'm curious to see how that goes for HRE. Malian's getting a lot of changes as well. The Mansa Quarry landmark no longer displays as a research production unit. For the, is this the Farimba garrison? They fixed an issue where javelin throwers and archers that are upgraded while in queue could take up more population than intended. The gold reduction bonus has been reduced from 20 to 10%. The technology tree now mentions that Malian villagers have a specific bonus for cattle. They're increasing the wonder footprint for Malian wonders from 5x5 to 6x6, so it matches the size of all other wonders in the game. That's interesting. The houses are getting a little bit more hit points from 400 to 500. For Mongols, they're getting some interesting changes, starting with the the Khaganate Palace landmark. It's now automatically going to rally a random army across the Mongol Empire and its dominions. So its options are 3 elite Rus Knights, 2 warrior monks, 5 elite horse archers, a nest of bees, 5 elite palace guards, 4 elite Mongadais, a trebuchet. It's a massive trebuchet with greatly increased range and damage, and the train times are scaled based on the unit. But in general, they spawn much faster than the previous 90 seconds. The silver tree is increased double trader production from 90 to 120. The white stupa landmark now contains Uvu technologies. They're finally kind of changing Mongadai. They're decreasing its move speed ever so slightly. The Shaya bow limbs technology has been increased from castle to imperial. Their damage has been decreased. They now attack faster, but the DPS should remain relatively unchanged against unarmored targets. The developers say this unit was tweaked to be less effective in large team games when the mobility and the fire on the go is extremely potent. We normally don't balance units specifically for team games, but it was such an outlier we felt these changes were necessary. Thank goodness, because that really just drives me nuts. That's the Imperial Armory landmark that you can get as Ottomans. That's the one where you get the free siege units. It can now be toggled to produce battering rams. The Istanbul Imperial Palace landmark fixed an issue where it was possible for the landmark to repeatedly stack its bonus effect when killed and repaired. Moving on to Rus, the Kremlin is getting some changes. The Kremlin may now levy militia to the landmark town center. Levy militia ability cost has been reduced from 100 to 40 food. The unit spawn has been reduced from 6 to 2. The Kremlin gains +1 supply every 60 seconds automatically and for free. So the developer said you gave feedback in the patch update preview that the militia levy ability could be used too easily for early aggression. We're addressing this by reducing the lifetime of the militia by 10 seconds, as well as reducing the amount of militia you can gain immediately when reaching feudal age. It will now take 2 minutes to field 6 militia after building the Kremlin. For the High Trade House landmark, the deer time has been reverted from 45 to 60 seconds. For the High Armory landmark, technologies in the High Armory have been updated. For fine-tuned guns, the effect has been changed 20% for bombard attack speed to 20% bombard damage. Now adds 60 bonus damage versus infantry. For bombards, the tech has been increased. The siege crew training, the effect of instant pack and unpack now applies to bombards. It still applies to manganols and trebuchets. The Wandering Town, the effect has been decreased, and it now also grants 2 healing per second in combat to rams. Finally, we're nearing the end of this patch. I mean, holy cow, this is absolutely insane. My recording time on this before editing is almost an hour. That's insane. Anyway, they're talking about a big change that they want to do was modify the hardest AI difficulty. I don't know why they wanted to do this. I thought this was kind of random. I wonder if this was like kind of changed for masteries, because to finish a mastery, you had to beat the hardest AI, and I think some people were saying it was too easy. Anyway, they're talking about it. It said, we've heard your feedback surrounding the recent changes to the hardest AI difficulty, and we will be working to address these concerns in the future. While we're still working out specific details and timing, the plan is to revert the hardest AI difficulty to its previous implementation in the near future while we look into the best way to adapt existing or introduce new AI difficulty options. I think essentially the hardest AI was like cheating in such a way that made it just really unfair and just not fun, I think, from a lot of players. So it looks like they're reverting that. Based on this wordage, it seems like that's not part of this patch, but it's coming soon thereafter. But I could be wrong about that. Finally, they're talking about an event called Villager Appreciation. That's going to drive me nuts because I hate my villagers, so I don't really have anything to share on that. But you can get some cool portraits. That, by and large, I mean, my goodness, that's it. There are some other things I didn't talk about in here, like, say, for example, a little bit of tuning to some of the things happening in maps, as well as modding and just general changes. But of course, general AI changes as well if you're playing against an AI opponent. All of that you can read here on this blog post. Again, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, update to Age of Empires 4 since its release. I always encourage you to play this game. I think it's one of the best strategy games I've ever played, one of my favorite games of all time, and I'm so glad that it's continuing to improve and get updates. Again, I do apologize for slaughtering names of landmarks and units throughout this video, as well as not being aware of all of the civs. I really kind of stick to my 5 or 6 civs that I normally play as, so I do apologize for that. But let me know your thoughts. Are you excited for this balance patch in Age of Empires 4? You going to play Nomad as an official game mode? What's your plan? Let me know in the comments down below. If this is your first time on the channel, at TeamRespawn, we love Age of Empires, and we have a ton of Age of Empires 4 content already on the channel with much more planned once this update goes live. That's going to do it for me. Thank you all so much for watching, everybody, and I'll see you, James.